It looks like Grant Cardone has stolen hundreds of millions of dollars from Cardone Capital investors. The federal authorities are investigating. Time is running out for Cardone Capital, and if Grant Cardone avoids prison, it will be a miracle. Hi everyone, Aaron here, and welcome back to the channel. So I told you guys a few weeks ago I was going to do a deep dive into Cardone Capital. I want to start by showing you the guy who first caught on to Grant Cardone's scheme, and I want to show you what he said about it. Real estate investor and YouTuber Kevin Paffrath, known on YouTube as Meet Kevin. He first caught on to this scheme and reported on it 2 years ago. Here is what he said about it on his channel.
This is a deal that Cardone Capital just bought. Here's the deed showing the purchase price, just under $134 million. Yet on this pamphlet, it says that their equity is $39.4 million, which is supposed to represent 25% equity, which means they're saying the building is worth $157 million. The form says at acquisition, this was their equity. Are they trying to deceive new investors, or what's up with this?
Well, it looks like deceiving new investors is exactly what Grant Cardone was trying to do. And not only that, it was part of his scheme to convert his investors' capital directly into personal profits put into Grant's own pocket. The deal that Kevin mentioned there was a project called Columbia Town Center. This was a project that Grant bought in December of 2019, and Kevin was reporting on it in March of 2020. And as they say, if you see one cockroach, there's probably 100 more that you can't see. It occurred to me that if Kevin was finding this deal in December 2019, just months after the deal occurred, then why don't we go back to the very first deal that Grant Cardone did when he expanded beyond the scope of just investing for friends and family and started raising money from accredited and unaccredited investors. Why don't we go back to that point and examine every single deal between when he first started and the deal that Kevin found in 2019. So that's exactly what I did. Between September 2016 and December 2019, Grant Cardone purchased 13 deals that he then sold to his Cardone Capital investors. And depending on which purchase price you want to use for each property, whether we're talking about the actual purchase price that Grant Cardone actually paid, or the false inflated purchase price that Grant Cardone told his investors that he paid, the total purchase price of the 13 properties was between $1 and $1.1 billion. Grant Cardone and Cardone Capital does not disclose the actual purchase price of these properties to Cardone Capital investors. And the information I'm showing you here has never been seen in public before. So how did I get this information? Well, doing this kind of research is literally my job. My company, OTG Research Group, does work for hedge funds, investigating and finding criminal and unethical behavior on behalf of usually publicly traded companies. But looking for this type of fraudulent behavior and doing the kind of work required in order to find the information is my specialty. You know, Grant, and Grant, I'm talking to you directly because I know that you watch my videos, because your friends talk to my friends, and I hear how much you've enjoyed all of the videos that I've been doing about you recently. So let me just say, you know, man to man, one of the biggest risk factors about operating a company based on greed and fear and intimidation is that your employees, they just don't really like you that much. You can be sure that as your employees are looking for other employment, they are enthusiastically collecting up every single bit of evidence that they can to share with the authorities and to bring your operation down. And Grant, you must be the only person at Cardone Capital who is unaware that you've been under federal investigation for well over a year now. And I'm really just giving you the benefit of the doubt by saying you must not be aware. Because if you are in fact aware about the federal investigations that are ongoing and how long they've been going on for, and you have continued to publicly raise funds from new unaccredited investors without disclosing this risk factor that you're being investigated by the feds, well, that could be a whole completely different can of worms for you as far as legal risks and lawsuits and possible charges some point down the line. And if you are one of the few Cardone Capital insiders who are not yet cooperating with the federal authorities in their investigations, you very seriously might consider saving your own ass while you still have an ass to save. And if you're a Cardone Capital investor, you very much might want to consider consulting with an attorney, get yourself a lawyer, contact the FTC, contact the SEC, contact the FBI. No matter what federal investigations are already ongoing or how many Cardone Capital employees and investors are already cooperating, it's never a bad idea to lend your voice to the chorus. Let me show you some of these deals, and I want you to see how Grant has made an order of magnitude more money by front-running his own investors than he has made based on the incentives that he gets paid on from Cardone Capital. So Reserve at Port St. Lucie. Grant's personal purchase price, he goes for $19.5 million, he buys this property. He then sells the property to Cardone Capital investors for a 17% markup, $22.875 million. He personally profits over $3.3 million. Those are profits that belong to Cardone Capital investors. These are the prices that Cardone Capital marketed to their investors in the prospectus for each one of the deals. This is the difference between the actual purchase price and the marketed purchase price. And this is the profit that Grant Cardone has personally made front-running his investors on all of these deals. Now, the way Grant Cardone is supposed to get paid from Cardone Capital, his incentives are supposed to be, he gets a 1% transaction fee on the purchase price of every property that Cardone Capital buys. Now, Cardone Capital investors don't actually understand that the only person that Cardone Capital ever buys a property from is Grant Cardone himself. I want to show you what that 1% fee would look like in total on all of these 13 deals. Based on the price advertised in the prospectus, the purchase price of all 13 of these deals is $1.115 billion. The 1% transaction fee on all these deals comes to $11.1 million. Not a bad payday, but reasonable and legal and disclosed to investors. Grant made over $110 million of profit directly into his own pocket just by front-running his investors on the deals that his investors believe he's out there finding for them. Now we finally know what Grant means by 10x. It all makes sense now. He means you can make 10 times more money defrauding your investors than you can by actually working for your investors. I finally get it. Now, guys, these are just the deals from September 2016 to December 2019. This is where I decided to stop because this is the deal that Kevin found. And so I stopped at December 2019. Grant Cardone currently says publicly that he controls about $5 billion of real estate. We can see here that back as of December 2019, he only controlled about $1 billion of real estate. So when I say Grant profited $110 million by front-running his own investors, guys, that was $4 billion ago. I have no reason to think that Grant's business model has changed since December 2019, and I guess I'll put it out to you guys. If you're a Cardone Capital investor, did you get a disclosure telling you that there was a difference between Grant's purchase price and the purchase price marketed in their prospectus? Did you receive any disclosure on this subject at all? If you have, and you'd be willing to share it with me, I would be grateful for that. Whether your goal is to tell me that I'm wrong or whether your goal is to tell me that I'm right, you can reach me at growingupinscientology@gmail.com. Let's look at this property that Kevin had done his video about. Columbia Town Center, December 2019. These numbers are exactly the same as what Kevin pointed out in his video, that Grant bought the property for $133.7 million. He marketed it to his investors at $157.6. Cardone personally profited $23.9 million by front-running his own investors. And get this, guys, don't forget, not only does Cardone pocket the difference between $133.7 million and $157.6 million, but then he charges his investors the 1% acquisition fee on the inflated purchase price of $157.6 $3.6 million. It's absolutely incredible. It still brings me back to the conversation of, is it just immoral? Is it just horribly taking advantage of investors, or is it actually illegal? And to answer that question is not up to me. It's up to the authorities, it's up to the courts, it's up to prosecutors. But even if all you care about is whether it's immoral, whether it's taking advantage of investors, guys, if you're a Cardone Capital investor, you were supposed to be able to get in on this property at $133.7 million. That's why you placed your money with Grant. That's what Grant promised. He said, I'm the expert. I'm the one. I can move fast. I can get the best deals. He told you that he was going to be getting the best deals for you. He didn't tell you that he was going to be getting the best deals for himself. And he was going to be using your capital to make himself rich. Even if it's just immoral and unethical, it is disgusting, and you'd have to be crazy to keep investing in any Cardone Capital deals. Guys, the signs that Grant Cardone has been up to no good and didn't want anybody looking into his business affairs have been out there for a while for all to see, even in some of Grant's stupid stories that he tells. Here's a story that Grant told about turning away a $20 million investment because the guy wanted to have some oversight into operations.
One guy that gave me 20 million about 3 years ago, the guy's name's Bob, and Bob's like, hey, I want to put 20 million in your deals. 20 million, one check. I'd never seen that before. I took the money, I said, why are you doing this? I trust you, your name means guarantee. Grant, the word grant means he always does what he says he's going to do, a guarantee. He'd spent 3 months with me, he's like, the way you operate is just so free. And he gave me the money, and then about 5 days later, one of his employees came to my office to check on our operations. I said, oh, okay, how long are you going to be here? 5 hours. I said, good, when you leave, when you're done, come see me, I got something for you. So he goes and does 5 hours of scrutiny, due diligence, checking into everything, finishes. I said, hey, you done? You done? You want a cup of coffee or something? He's like, no, I'm good. I'm getting ready to get it on an airplane. I said, good, man, I got something for you. And I passed him an envelope, and he's like, what's this? I said, give it to Bob. He's like, what's in it? I said, you can look at it. And it was a check for $20 million. I thought Bob trusted me. I don't know what you're doing here. I don't want money like this.
The story is such obviously bullshit, but I believe it is centered around a kernel of truth. Grant is almost certainly talking about billionaire Scientologist Bob Duggan. Bob was the CEO of a pharmaceutical company called Pharmacyclics and became a billionaire off of one wildly successful drug. And there was a period where Grant Cardone is, of course, a Scientologist. Grant Cardone was kind of sucking up to Bob and riding his coattails for a while and really cozying up to him. Grant had posted a lot of videos of him hanging out with Bob, Grant's family hanging out with Bob's family, doing alpha male shit, 10x, 10x. And there was some falling out. Grant tells this story as if it makes him look like a badass for turning away $20 million. But to someone who's paying attention, you would have to ask yourself, why on earth would a legitimate businessman turn away a $20 million investment just because the investor wanted to have a little bit of diligence? A straight up honest businessman is not afraid of diligence, especially when it comes with an upside of a $20 million investment. By the way, Grant can never really keep his stories straight. He said he'd never seen a check that big, coming from the guy who tells another bullshit story about having sent a $50 million wire to Gulfstream to buy a jet. And by the way, just as an aside, when you guys hear Grant Cardone talking about having $5 billion under management, having $5 billion of property under management, $5 billion under management means investor capital. Investors have given you $5 billion to manage. When Grant says he has $5 billion under management, he's talking about what he decides is the current market value of all of the properties that he has purchased, even though those properties are leveraged usually up to 80%. So $5 billion of property under management is equal to more of $1 billion of investor capital under management. And this has gotten so crazy that people in Grant's camp have even started to use this $5 billion figure as now that's Grant's net worth. And this brings up yet another factor. The fact that Grant raises his investor capital through social media, combined with the fact that Grant lies on social media about being a billionaire, that is fraudulent communication. I don't know if it rises to the legal level of fraud. But if Grant is out there trying to get you to give your investment money to him, and as part of doing that, he is lying to you about being a billionaire, it's just, even if it doesn't rise to the legal level of fraud, because I just don't know, you still have to take that into consideration. Why would you give your money to someone who misrepresents themselves? If they're lying about the little things, they could be lying about the big things. As we can see, Grant lies about the little things and he lies about the big things. It's hard to know if anything out of Grant Cardone's mouth is actually true at all. In my line of work, you do not talk about your clients, you do not talk about your projects, but there's only one client who has publicly discussed the work that I did for him, and that's Bill Ackman in his battle against Herbalife. I helped Bill in his investigations of Herbalife. My work, what I contributed, was mostly outside of the United States. But my work uncovered that Herbalife was violating the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, committing many crimes in many countries. And for those of you who might be superficially familiar with the story that I'm talking about, some people are under the impression that Bill lost and Herbalife won because Bill lost money on the trade and Herbalife is still in business. I promise you, Herbalife did not win. Herbalife paid hundreds of millions of dollars in fines and penalties to settle the criminal case brought against it by the Department of Justice, based in large part on the research I did in China and Russia and Brazil. So I know what I'm doing. I'm in my element here. And I got to tell you, companies that are committing crimes very rarely appreciate people looking into those crimes and disclosing them. They don't send you a letter saying, can you please stop investigating our crimes? What they normally do is they accuse you of crimes and they have their lawyers send you threatening letters, which, by the way, is exactly what Herbalife did to me. Here you can see the letter that Herbalife's attorney sent me back in the day with all sorts of accusations of improper conduct, none of which were true. And they sent that letter, they sent copies of that letter like Fox Business and MSNBC. There were a few different financial news networks that got copied on that. In fact, I was even accused of being under investigation by the FBI. None of that turned out to be true. The only time I have personally ever been contacted by the FBI is when there is an investigation occurring into Scientology abuses, and I've been able to be helpful there, hopefully to some degree or another. So I'm sure Grant Cardone may very well do the same thing. But Grant, if you're looking for someone that you think you can intimidate or threaten or scare, you've got the wrong guy. Herbalife was tied up in all sorts of nasty shit. We're talking about money laundering, we're talking about drug cartels, we're talking about Russian organized crime, and you think I'm kidding? I am not fucking kidding. I am not afraid of Grant Cardone and Cardone fucking Capital. All right, so this sheet here is the essence of what I wanted to share with you today. For all of you out there who have opinions on this, if you think I'm right, if you have other documentation to prove that I'm right, please share it with me. If you think I'm wrong and you have actual information that you can share with me about how I'm wrong, please share it with me. And for you Cardone Capital insiders who are still hoping that all of this is going to turn out all right, here's what you're not considering. You're not considering how many of your coworkers are already cooperating with the state and providing evidence against you and against Grant. And I'm telling you, the chance that this is all going to come out right and Cardone Capital is going to continue just being a going concern and that Grant is going to avoid going to prison, I would say the chances of that are quite small. So it might be time to get off the fence. It might be time to get an attorney for yourself. And it might be time to consider cooperating, because I'll tell you, the ones who are going to get burned the hardest are the ones who wait the longest. All right, everyone, that's all I have on this for now. More to come. Thank you for watching. Thank you to all of you who watched until the very end, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.